The first bullet missed Marcus Jackson's head by 3 inches. The second never got fired. In one fluid motion, the 42-year-old mechanic, a man who spent his days changing oil and rotating tires, crossed 12 feet of concrete, disarmed the gunman, and snapped his wrist like a dry twig. The woman bleeding in the wrecked Mercedes watched in stunned silence. She was Victoria Sterling, billionaire CEO of Sterling Defense Technologies. He was supposed to be nobody. But as 3 more armed men poured through the destroyed garage door, Victoria realized the terrifying truth. This grease-stained single father was far more dangerous than the killers hunting her. Stay with me until the end of this incredible story, and let me know in the comments what city you're watching from, so I can see how far this tale of love and redemption has traveled. The screech of tires against asphalt shattered the peaceful morning silence of Millbrook's main street like a gunshot through a prayer. Marcus Jackson's weathered hands paused mid-wrench as the sound echoed through his cluttered auto shop. His instincts he'd spent 5 years trying to bury, snapped to attention before his conscious mind could catch up. Then came the crash, metal screaming against brick, glass exploding, the thunder of a 2-ton vehicle destroying everything in its path. His garage door, the one he'd installed himself 3 summers ago while Zoe handed him bolts and giggled, was gone, twisted scrap. Through the settling dust and steam, a midnight black Mercedes S-Class sat embedded in what used to be his tool cabinet. Marcus didn't move toward the wreckage immediately. He listened, counted heartbeats, scanned the street beyond the destruction. Old habits, the kind that kept men alive in places where death wore 1,000 faces. "Help me." The voice was barely a whisper, feminine, refined, desperate. "Please, help me." Marcus moved then, crossing the debris field with the fluid, silent grace that had earned him his call sign in another life. Ghost. They'd called him Ghost because enemies never heard him coming. The driver's door was crumpled, but the window had shattered completely. Inside, slumped over the steering wheel, was a woman who clearly didn't belong anywhere near Millbrook, Virginia. Everything about her screamed wealth and power. The tailored charcoal suit, the diamond earrings catching light through the dust. Dark hair, once perfect, now falling in waves around a face that was beautiful despite the terror etched across it. Blood trickled from a cut on her forehead. "Ma'am, don't move," Marcus said. His voice came out calm, authoritative, a tone he hadn't used in 5 years. "You might have neck injuries." Her eyes found his. Green eyes, sharp, intelligent. Even through the panic, he could see a mind working, calculating, assessing. "They're coming," she gasped. Her manicured fingers grabbed his forearm with surprising strength. I can't let them take me back." "Who's coming?" But Marcus was already scanning the street. His trained eye caught what civilians would miss. Movement in the shadows. Dark shapes positioning themselves with military precision. The low rumble of multiple engines approaching fast. 3 black SUVs, tinted windows, government plates. But wrong. The kind of wrong that meant private military contractors, or worse. "Listen to me carefully." Marcus's voice dropped to the tone he'd once used to brief fellow SEALs before missions that weren't supposed to exist. "I'm going to help you out of this car. Then we're going to move to the back of the shop. Can you walk?" She nodded, though her hands were shaking. As Marcus carefully extracted her from the wreckage, supporting her weight with one arm, he couldn't help the question burning in his mind. "What's your name?" "Victoria," she breathed. "Victoria Sterling." The name hit him like ice water to the face. Victoria Sterling, CEO of Sterling Defense Technologies. He'd seen her face on magazine covers, news reports, congressional hearings. One of the most powerful women in American defense contracting. What the hell was she doing crashing into his garage in rural Virginia? The rumble of engines grew louder. Car doors slammed. Voices called out in clipped, professional tones. The kind of communication that only came from military training or its ugly private sector cousin. Target is inside the structure. Alpha team, take the front. Bravo team, circle to the rear. Marcus's blood ran cold at the next words. Remember, we need her alive. Collateral damage is acceptable. Collateral damage. They were talking about him. Victoria. He said her name with urgent calm. I need you to understand something. These men are professionals. They're here to take you. I don't know why, but I'm not going to let that happen. She stared at him, tears streaming down her face. Why? You don't even know me. For a moment, Marcus's carefully controlled mask cracked. Something raw and painful surfaced in his dark eyes. Because a long time ago, I failed to protect someone who needed me. I made a promise at her grave. I won't break it again. Before Victoria could respond, the first gunman appeared in the destroyed doorway. Tall, lean, tactical black from head to toe. Dead eyes that came from too many kills and not enough conscience. His assault rifle swept the garage methodically, searching for targets. Marcus had already positioned himself with a clear sightline. His hand moved to the small of his back, to the Glock 19 he'd carried every day for 5 years, even when he told himself he was done with that life. One shot. Clean. Professional. Center mass. The gunman dropped without a sound. Victoria's hand flew to her mouth, stifling a scream. Stay quiet, Marcus hissed, already moving to a new position. And stay behind me. Outside, shouts erupted. Alpha 1 is down. Repeat, Alpha 1 is down. All units converge on the building. Target is armed and dangerous. Marcus smiled grimly. Dangerous. They had no idea. How many? Victoria whispered. 3 vehicles, probably 12 men, maybe more. And you're going to fight all of them? I'm going to keep you alive, whatever that takes. The second gunman came through a side window. Marcus was waiting. 2 shots, one to the chest, one to the head. The body crumpled across the window frame. Jesus Christ, Victoria breathed. Move, back corner, behind the engine block. She obeyed, scrambling across the oil-stained concrete while Marcus laid down covering fire. His shots were precise, economical. Every bullet served a purpose. But they kept coming. There's too many, Victoria said, as bullets sparked off metal around their position. We can't. There's always a way out. Marcus ejected his empty magazine, slammed in a fresh one. You just have to be willing to find it. What way? They've got the building surrounded. Then we give them something they're not expecting. Marcus grabbed her hand. When I say run, you run for the back office. There's a door that leads to the alley. My truck is parked 20 feet from that door. Black F-150. Keys are in the ignition. What about you? I'll be right behind you. The way he said it made Victoria certain he was lying. No, she grabbed his arm. We both get out, together, or neither of us does. Marcus stared at her. This woman he'd known for all of 5 minutes. This billionaire CEO who had no business being in his garage, no business caring whether he lived or died. Something shifted in his chest. Something he hadn't felt since his wife's funeral. Stubborn, he muttered. You have no idea. Fine, together. But you stay behind me. You move when I move, and you don't stop for anything. Understood? On 3. 1. A voice called out from the street. A voice that made Marcus's blood freeze solid in his veins. Marcus Jackson, Staff Sergeant, SEAL Team 4, Afghanistan, 2019. I know you're in there. The voice was cultured, confident, carrying the easy authority of a man who'd spent decades giving orders that ended lives. Victoria saw the change in Marcus immediately. His jaw clenched so hard she could hear his teeth grinding. His hands, steady through everything, began to tremble. "Who is that?" she whispered. "Someone who should be dead." "Mr. Jackson," the voice continued, closer now, "I'm going to make this very simple. You have something that belongs to me. Send her out, and I'll let you live. Continue to interfere, and I'll have my men burn this building down around you." Marcus moved to a gap in the garage's broken wall. Through it, he could see the man speaking. Tall, distinguished. Silver hair swept back from a face that belonged on currency or campaign posters. Expensive suit that somehow looked more dangerous than any tactical gear. Cold blue eyes that had watched men die and felt nothing. Colonel Victor Hayes, the man who had destroyed everything Marcus ever loved. "You son of a bitch," Marcus breathed. "Ah, there you are," Hayes smiled. "I'd recognize that voice anywhere. How long has it been? 5 years? 6? Not long enough. Still angry about Afghanistan, I see. You really should learn to let go of the past, Sergeant. It's weighing you down." "You killed my team." "Your team died because you disobeyed orders. If you'd eliminated the target as instructed..." "She was 8 years old." Victoria's eyes went wide. She looked at Marcus, then at the man outside, piecing together a history she couldn't fully comprehend. "Children grow up," Hayes said dismissively. "This one would have grown up to be a problem. I simply prevented that problem. You murdered her. I made a strategic decision, one you were too weak to make. That weakness cost 12 good operators their lives. Their blood is on your hands, Marcus, not mine." The words hit Marcus like physical blows. He saw their faces, heard their voices, remembered the moment the ambush hit, the moment he realized Hayes had sold them out. 12 brothers. Dead. Because Marcus wouldn't execute a child. And then Amira herself. The little girl with the big brown eyes who'd trusted him to keep her safe. Hayes's men had found her after the ambush. What they'd done to her. Marcus still couldn't sleep some nights. "You've got 30 seconds, Sergeant." Hayes checked his watch casually. "Then my men come in with incendiary rounds. Your choice. The woman walks out alive, or you both burn. Either way, I get what I want." Victoria grabbed Marcus's arm. "Don't listen to him, please." "Quiet." "He'll kill me anyway. Men like him don't leave witnesses." "I said quiet." "Marcus." He turned to look at her. Really look. Past the blood and the fear and the expensive suit to the woman beneath. "Why does he want you?" Marcus demanded. "What aren't you telling me?" Victoria hesitated. "I found something. In my company's files. A project called Phoenix." "What kind of project?" "Autonomous weapons. AI targeting systems that can identify and eliminate targets without human oversight. Someone's been selling the technology to foreign buyers. When I tried to expose it, they decided to silence you." "Not silence. Control. They need me alive to authorize certain transactions, security clearances, biometric access, but they can't let me talk." Marcus processed this with the analytical mind of a soldier. A defense contractor CEO with knowledge of classified weapon sales. An illegal operation worth billions. No wonder Hayes wanted her badly enough to attack in broad daylight. 20 seconds, Hayes called. Victoria clutched Marcus's arm harder. Listen to me. I know you don't know me. I know you have no reason to risk your life for a stranger. But there are things on my computer, evidence, that could bring down this entire operation. If you can get me out of here, if we can reach that evidence, we can stop them. All of them. 10 seconds. Marcus looked at Victoria, then at the photo on his workbench, visible even through the destruction. Zoe, his baby girl, 6 years old, waiting at school for her daddy to pick her up. He had every reason to walk away. Every reason to hand this woman over and go back to his quiet life. But he heard Amira's voice in his head, the last words she'd ever spoken to him. "You'll keep me safe, won't you? Promise?" He'd failed that promise once. Never again. "Time's up, Sergeant. What's it going to be?" Marcus raised his voice so Hayes could hear clearly. "You want her, Colonel? Come and get her." Silence. Then Hayes laughed, a cold, joyless sound. "Have it your way. Alpha Team, weapons free. Burn it down." Marcus grabbed Victoria and threw them both to the ground as the first incendiary rounds came through the windows. Flames erupted where they'd been standing moments before. "Back office, now!" They ran in a crouch, bullets and fire chasing them across the garage. Marcus laid down covering fire, his shots finding marks even through the chaos. 2 more gunmen dropped. "Door's jammed!" Victoria screamed, struggling with the back office entrance. Marcus crossed the distance in 3 strides, shoulder-checked the door off its hinges, and shoved Victoria through. "The truck! Go!" But Victoria didn't go. She grabbed a fallen rifle from one of the men Marcus had dropped and positioned herself at the doorway. "What the hell are you doing?" "I'm not running while you die for me. You don't know how to—" She fired. Once. Twice. A gunman who'd been flanking their position went down. Marcus stared at her in shock. "My father was Army," Victoria said, ejecting the empty magazine like she'd done it 1,000 times. "He taught me to shoot before he taught me to drive." Despite everything, the fire, the gunman, the man outside who wanted them both dead, Marcus felt something unexpected. Respect. "Fine. Cover me while I get the truck." He moved to the back exit, checked the alley through a crack in the door. Clear. The truck was exactly where he'd left it, 20 feet away, black metal gleaming in the morning light. "On my mark. 3, 2, 1, mark!" Victoria opened fire through the office doorway while Marcus sprinted for the truck. Bullets kicked up dirt around his feet, but none found their mark. He yanked open the driver's door, turned the key. The engine roared to life. "Victoria, move!" She broke cover and ran. Marcus threw the passenger door open, and she dove inside, just as a bullet shattered the back window. "Go, go, go!" Marcus floored the accelerator. The truck's tires screamed as they tore down the alley, sideswiping the dumpster, exploding through a chain-link fence, and fishtailing onto the main road. Behind them, the garage was fully engulfed in flames. His business, his livelihood, 5 years of building a normal life for his daughter. Gone, just like that. "Are you hit?" Marcus demanded, his eyes checking mirrors for pursuit. "No. You?" "I'm fine." Victoria looked at him, really looked. At the blood on his shirt that definitely wasn't from any wound she could see. At the set of his jaw. At the tears he was blinking back. "Your shop," she said quietly. "Doesn't matter." "It was your home." "I said it doesn't matter." But she could hear the crack in his voice, the mourning he couldn't afford to feel right now. "I'm sorry," Victoria whispered. "I'm so sorry. This is all my fault. If I hadn't... Hayes did this, not you. Because I led him here. You led him to me. Marcus glanced at her, something hard in his eyes, and that was his mistake. They drove in silence for several minutes. Marcus took back roads, doubling back twice, checking constantly for tails. The mountains rose around them as they left Millbrook behind. Finally, Victoria spoke. "Where are we going?" "Somewhere safe. I have a cabin in the Blue Ridge, off-grid. No cell towers for 20 miles. Hayes won't find us there." "And then what?" "Then you tell me everything. Who you are, what you found, why a man who was supposed to die in a military prison 5 years ago is walking around free and trying to kill you." Victoria was quiet for a moment. Then, "He didn't die in prison?" "He was never in prison. The mission in Afghanistan, the one where my team died, it was classified. Hayes made sure the official story blamed me. Disobeying orders, getting my men killed. I was discharged, dishonorably. He walked away a hero." That's monstrous." "That's Victor Hayes." Another silence. The road climbed higher into the mountains. "The little girl," Victoria said carefully. "The one you mentioned. Amira." Marcus's hands tightened on the wheel. "You don't have to..." "She was an asset. Local. Her father had been a translator for coalition forces before the Taliban killed him. Amira survived. She lived with her grandmother in a village near our operating base. She had information. Movements, weapons caches, things she'd overheard from insurgents who didn't think an 8-year-old could understand." He paused, swallowed hard. "Hayes ordered me to eliminate her after the intel transfer. Said she was a liability. That the insurgents would eventually find out she'd been helping us, and they'd torture her for information." "But you refused." "She was 8 years old. She had a doll she carried everywhere, some Ravi thing she'd had since she was a baby. She showed it to me once. Asked if I had any daughters. I told her about Zoe." Victoria felt tears building in her own eyes. "What happened?" "I refused the order. Hayes reported me for insubordination and sent my team on a routine patrol that turned out to be a trap. 12 men ambushed. I was the only survivor." "And Amira?" "Hayes sent a cleanup crew. They found her 3 days later." Marcus's voice cracked. "What they did to her. She was just a kid. She never hurt anyone. She just wanted to help." Victoria reached out and put her hand on his arm. She didn't have words. There were no words. "After the discharge, I came home," Marcus continued. "My wife was dying. Cancer. I spent 8 months watching her fade away while my little girl tried to understand why Mommy was always sleeping. Rebecca died 14 months after I got back. My God. So I built a new life. Quiet. Simple. Just me and Zoe. I told myself I was done with violence. Done with war. Done with watching people I loved die because men like Hayes think human beings are just pieces on a chessboard." He looked at Victoria. His eyes were wet, but his voice was steady. "And then you crashed into my garage." Victoria didn't look away. "I'm not just a piece on a chessboard, Marcus, and neither are you. Hayes doesn't get to win this time. Not if I can help it." "You don't know what you're saying." "I know exactly what I'm saying. That evidence I told you about? It's not just proof of illegal weapon sales. It's everything. Financial records, communication logs, video of those autonomous systems in action, the names of everyone involved, from corporate executives to government officials." Marcus stared at her. "How the hell did you get all that?" "Because the bastards used my company to do it. They hid their operation inside Sterling Defense, used my security clearances, my contracts, my reputation. When I found out, I started documenting everything. Where is this evidence now? Encrypted. Multiple locations. The primary drive is hidden in my apartment in Georgetown. But there are backups. Cloud servers Hayes doesn't know about. Offshore storage facilities. I learned a long time ago never to keep all my eggs in one basket. For the first time since the garage, Marcus felt something other than fear and rage. Hope. "If we can get to that evidence," Victoria said, "we can bring them all down. Hayes, the buyers, everyone." "They'll have your apartment watched." "I know." "They'll be expecting us." "I know." "We could die." Victoria looked at him. This man who'd lost everything, his team, his wife, his home, and was still fighting, still protecting, still refusing to let monsters win. "Then we die fighting," she said. "That's better than living on our knees." Marcus was quiet for a long moment. The road wound higher into the mountains, trees closing in around them like a green embrace. "My daughter," he finally said. "Zoe. She's at school. If Hayes knows about me, he knows about her." Victoria's face went pale. "We have to get her." "I know, but I can't walk into her school looking like this, covered in blood, armed. The police would be there in minutes." "So what do we do?" Marcus pulled out his phone, a burner he kept for emergencies. "I have someone. Someone who can pick her up without raising suspicion." "Who?" "Her godmother, Denise, my wife's sister. She's the emergency contact at Zoe's school." He dialed. 3 rings. "Marcus, what's wrong? You never use this number." "I need you to pick up Zoe, right now. Don't ask questions, don't go home. Take her to the cabin and wait for me." Silence on the other end. Then, "How bad is it?" "Bad enough that I'm asking." "I'll have her in 20 minutes. "Denise." "I know. I'll protect her with my life, just like you protected my sister." The line went dead. Victoria watched Marcus close his eyes for just a moment. The relief on his face was palpable. "She'll be okay," Victoria said. "She has to be. She's everything." "Tell me about her, Zoe." Despite everything, Marcus smiled. "She's 6, stubborn as hell, smart, too smart. She asks questions I can't answer, like why the sky is blue, and why Mommy had to go to heaven, and why her daddy has nightmares." "What do you tell her?" "That the sky is blue because God painted it that way. That Mommy is watching over her from somewhere beautiful. And that Daddy's nightmares are just dreams, nothing she needs to worry about." "Do you believe that? About the nightmares?" Marcus was quiet for a long time. "I want to," he finally said. "For her sake, I want to." The cabin appeared through the trees 20 minutes later. A solid structure of weathered cedar and stone, tucked away from the world like a secret. Marcus had built it himself in the months after Rebecca died. Something to do with his hands when his mind wouldn't stop screaming. Something to prove he could still create instead of just destroy. They pulled up to the front porch, and Marcus killed the engine. For a moment, neither of them moved. "We should have a few hours before Hayes regroups," Marcus said. "I need to treat your wounds properly. Then we plan." "Plan what, exactly?" "How to get your evidence. How to expose Hayes. How to burn his entire operation to the ground." Victoria looked at him. This mechanic, this soldier, this father who'd lost everything and refused to stop fighting. "Why?" she asked. "Why help me? Really, I'm nobody to you." Marcus opened his door, pausing with one foot on the ground. "You're not nobody. You're someone who needs protection, and that's who I am. That's who I've always been, even when I tried to forget it." He looked back at her, and she saw something in his eyes that made her breath catch. "Besides," he added quietly, Maybe it's time I stopped running from who I am." He stepped out of the truck. After a moment, Victoria followed. Whatever came next, whatever dangers waited in the shadows, she wasn't facing them alone. And somehow, against all logic and reason, that knowledge made her feel safer than she'd felt in years. The cabin was cold. Marcus moved through the darkness with practiced efficiency, checking windows, scanning the tree line, confirming that the years of solitude hadn't compromised his security measures. Victoria stood in the center of the main room, her arms wrapped around herself, watching him work. "You built this place," she said. It wasn't a question. "After my wife died." Marcus struck a match, touched it to kindling in the fireplace. "Needed something to do with my hands." "It's beautiful." "It's functional." He straightened, turning to face her. "Let me look at that wound." Victoria had almost forgotten about the gash on her forehead. The adrenaline had dulled everything except survival. But now, in the relative safety of the cabin, the pain came rushing back. She sat on a worn leather couch, while Marcus retrieved a military-grade first aid kit from a cabinet that looked far more sophisticated than anything a rural cabin should contain. "This might sting. I've had worse." He cleaned the wound with gentle precision, his calloused hands surprisingly tender. Victoria found herself studying his face, the hard lines around his eyes, the flecks of gray in his close-cropped hair, the scar that ran along his jaw. "How did you get that?" she asked, touching the scar lightly. Marcus's hands paused. "Fallujah, 2007. IED took out our Humvee. I was the only one who walked away." "You've lost a lot of people." "Everyone loses people. I just seem to lose more than most." He finished cleaning the wound and began applying butterfly bandages. His touch was clinical, professional, but Victoria felt something else in it. A carefulness that went beyond medical necessity. "You're good at this," she said. "I've had practice." He met her eyes. "Too much practice." "Marcus, I need you to tell me everything." His voice hardened. "From the beginning. What is Project Phoenix? Who's involved? And how does Hayes fit into all of this?" Victoria took a deep breath. She'd spent months keeping the secret, trusting no one, documenting everything while pretending ignorance. Now she was about to share it all with a man she'd known for less than 3 hours, a man who'd killed to protect her. "It started 6 months ago," she began. "I was conducting a routine audit of our defense contracts. Sterling Defense handles billions in government work, weapon systems, surveillance technology, logistics support. Most of it's legitimate. But not all of it." "No. I found discrepancies in our research division. Funding that didn't match any official programs. Technology transfers to shell companies in countries we don't do business with. And then I found Phoenix." "What is it?" "The next generation of warfare." Victoria's voice went cold. "Autonomous weapon systems with AI targeting capabilities. Drones, ground units, even naval platforms, all capable of identifying and eliminating targets without human oversight." Marcus felt ice in his veins. "Killer robots. That's the crude term, yes. But these aren't science fiction. They're real. They're operational. And someone has been selling them to the highest bidder." "Who?" "That's what I was trying to find out when Hayes's people came for me. The operation is compartmentalized. Need-to-know basis only. But I tracked the money far enough to know it leads to people at the highest levels of government and military." "How high?" Victoria hesitated. "Pentagon, intelligence community, maybe Congress." Marcus stood abruptly, pacing to the window. The weight of what she was describing settled on his shoulders like a physical burden. "Hayes," he said. "Where does he fit?" He's the operational commander, the man who makes things happen on the ground. He has connections everywhere: military, intelligence, private contractors. If someone needs to disappear, if evidence needs to be destroyed, if a witness needs to be silenced, he's the one they call. Yes. Marcus turned back to her. And he's been using these autonomous weapons? Deploying them? In conflict zones. Places where accountability is flexible. Syria, Yemen, and... She stopped. And Afghanistan. Victoria nodded slowly. I found operational reports. Test deployments, they call them. Evaluating system performance in real-world conditions. What kind of tests? Target elimination. High-value individuals. Anyone who knew too much, or saw too much, or posed a threat to the operation. Marcus's hands clenched into fists. A mirror. I found a reference. No name, just an age and description. An 8-year-old girl in a village near a coalition operating base. Eliminated by autonomous weapon system during field test. The words hit Marcus like bullets. For 5 years, he'd blamed himself for Amira's death. Believed that if he'd been faster, smarter, more ruthless, she might have survived. But she'd never had a chance. She'd been marked for death the moment she became useful to Hayes's operation. They murdered her, Marcus said quietly. They murdered an 8-year-old girl to test their machines. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Don't, his voice cracked. Don't apologize for something you didn't do. Victoria stood, crossing to him. She put her hand on his arm, feeling the tension coiled beneath his skin. We can stop them, she said. The evidence I have, it's enough to bring them all down. Hayes, the buyers, everyone involved. Where is this evidence? The primary drive is hidden in my apartment in Georgetown, but there are backups. Cloud servers, offshore storage. I've been careful. Georgetown will be watched. I know, but we don't have a choice. The drive contains the decryption keys for everything else. Without it, the other files are useless. Marcus was quiet for a long moment. Then, there's someone who might be able to help. Someone who knows how to navigate this kind of situation. Who? A woman named Katerina Volkov, former Russian intelligence. She defected years ago and now works as an information broker. If anyone can help us get into your apartment without getting killed, it's her. Can you trust her? I trust that she hates men like Hayes more than she loves money. For now, that's enough. A sound from outside made them both freeze. Tires on gravel. An engine cutting off. Marcus had his gun in his hand before Victoria could blink. Stay here. He moved to the window, staying low, checking the approach to the cabin. Then his shoulders relaxed slightly. It's okay. It's Denise. The front door opened, and a woman in her late 30s entered, carrying a sleeping child in her arms. Zoe. Marcus crossed the room in 3 strides, taking his daughter from Denise with a tenderness that made Victoria's heart ache. The little girl stirred, her eyes fluttering open. Daddy? Hey, baby girl, I'm here. Why are we at the cabin? Is it a surprise trip? Something like that. Marcus kissed her forehead. Go back to sleep. We'll talk in the morning. Zoe's eyes found Victoria over her father's shoulder. Who's that lady? A friend. Her name is Victoria. She's pretty. Despite everything, Victoria smiled. Thank you, sweetheart. Zoe studied her with the unfiltered curiosity of childhood. Are you Daddy's girlfriend? Zoe? Marcus's voice carried gentle warning. What? You said I should always ask questions. Not that question. Not right now. Denise stepped forward, her expression serious. Marcus, We need to talk. Alone. He nodded, carrying Zoe toward the bedroom. I'll put her down. Give me 5 minutes. When he was gone, Denise turned to Victoria with hard eyes. I don't know who you are or what kind of trouble you've brought to my brother-in-law's door, but that little girl in there is all he has left in this world. If anything happens to her because of you, I understand. Do you? Because Marcus has already lost more than any man should have to lose. My sister, his team, his career. Everything he built was supposed to keep him and Zoe safe. And now I've destroyed that. Victoria met Denise's gaze without flinching. You're right. I brought this to his door. And I will spend the rest of my life making sure he and Zoe don't pay for my mistakes. Denise studied her for a long moment. Whatever she saw seemed to satisfy her, because some of the hostility drained from her posture. He's a good man, Denise said quietly. The best man I've ever known. Rebecca, my sister, she used to say that Marcus had enough love in his heart for the whole world, but he'd given most of it to her and Zoe. I can see that. When she died, something broke in him. He went through the motions, raising Zoe, building his business, pretending to be okay. But I could see it, the emptiness behind his eyes. Victoria thought about the man who'd charged into a firefight to save a stranger, who'd given up everything, his home, his safety, his carefully constructed normal life, without hesitation. He's not empty, Victoria said. He's wounded. There's a difference. Marcus returned before Denise could respond. His face was drawn, exhausted, but his eyes were alert. She's asleep. Didn't even ask why we're here in the middle of the night. Kids are resilient, Denise said. More than we give them credit for. I need you to stay with her. Can you do that? Of course. But Marcus, where are you going? Washington. There's evidence we need to retrieve. Evidence that can stop the people who did this. And if they find you? Marcus's jaw tightened. Then I'll stop them another way. Denise hugged him fiercely. Come back to her. Promise me. I promise. Don't make promises you can't keep. I never have. When Denise went to check on Zoe, Marcus turned to Victoria. We leave in an hour. I need to make some calls, gather supplies. You should try to rest. I don't think I can sleep. Then eat something. There's food in the kitchen. It's not much, but... Marcus. Victoria caught his arm as he turned away. Thank you. For everything. For saving my life. For trusting me. For... Don't thank me yet. We're not even close to finished. I know. But I wanted you to know. Whatever happens, I'm grateful. For you. Something shifted in his eyes. Something warm beneath the soldier's exterior. Get some rest, Victoria. Tomorrow's going to be hell. The next morning came too quickly. Marcus had been up for hours, making calls on secure lines, gathering weapons and equipment from hidden caches around the cabin. Victoria found him on the porch, staring at the sunrise. You didn't sleep, she said. I never do. Not well, anyway. The nightmares? He nodded slowly. They're worse when I'm not busy, when I have time to think. What do you see in the dreams? Marcus was quiet for a long moment. Faces. My team. Rebecca. Amira. They ask me why I couldn't save them. Why I'm still alive when they're not. What do you tell them? Nothing. Because I don't have an answer. Victoria moved to stand beside him, close enough that their shoulders almost touched. Maybe the answer isn't about why you survived. Maybe it's about what you do with that survival. That's what Rebecca used to say. That I was alive for a reason. That I just had to find it. Did you? Marcus looked at her. In the early morning light, with her hair tangled and her face still bruised, She was the most beautiful woman he'd seen since his wife died. I'm starting to think maybe I did. Before Victoria could respond, Marcus's phone buzzed. He checked it, his expression hardening. Katerina, she's ready to meet. We need to go. The drive to Arlington took 3 hours. Marcus took back roads, avoided highways, doubled back twice to check for surveillance. Victoria used the time to study the files she'd managed to download before fleeing her office. There's something I don't understand, she said, scrolling through financial records. Hayes is military, decorated, connected. Why risk everything on an illegal weapons operation? Money, power, the usual. No, it's more than that. Look at these communications. He talks about Phoenix like it's a crusade, like he genuinely believes he's saving lives. By killing people? By replacing human soldiers with machines. No more flag-draped coffins. No more grieving families. No more PTSD and suicide and broken veterans. Marcus's hands tightened on the wheel. He said something like that. In Afghanistan. Before he sent my team to die. What did he say? That soldiers were obsolete. That the future of warfare was technology, not men. That anyone who couldn't see that was just collateral damage. My God. Hayes doesn't see people as people. He sees assets and liabilities, resources to be used or eliminated. And Amira was a liability. She was a test case, a way to prove his machines could do what soldiers couldn't. Kill without hesitation, without conscience. Victoria felt sick. How do you fight someone like that? You don't fight them. You expose them. You shine light on everything they've tried to keep hidden, and you let the world judge them. And if the world doesn't care? Marcus's voice went cold. Then you do whatever it takes. Katerina Volkov's safe house was a nondescript row house in a quiet Arlington neighborhood. But the moment they stepped inside, Victoria realized this was no ordinary residence. Screens covered every wall, displaying news feeds, surveillance footage, communication intercepts. Equipment hummed in corners, analyzing data streams from sources Victoria couldn't even guess at. Marcus Jackson. Katerina emerged from behind a bank of monitors, her silver-streaked hair pulled back from a face that was still striking despite its age. I wondered when you would come calling. You knew about Hayes? I know about many things. It's my business to know. Her eyes shifted to Victoria. And you must be the woman who's turned Washington upside down. Victoria Sterling. I've been following your career for years. You have? A woman who rises to the top of a male-dominated industry? Who outmaneuvers senators and generals and defense secretaries? Of course I've been watching. I wanted to see if you were just lucky or genuinely dangerous. And what did you conclude? Katerina smiled. Dangerous. Very dangerous. Which is why I wasn't surprised when you found Phoenix. You knew about the operation? I knew pieces. Rumors and whispers and money trails that disappeared into shell companies. But I never had proof. Not until you started digging. Marcus stepped forward. We need to get into her apartment. Georgetown. It's going to be watched. Of course it's watched. Hayes has people everywhere. But I have access to certain resources that might help. She turned to one of her terminals, pulling up surveillance feeds of Victoria's building. 6 men, 2 in the lobby, 2 in the parking garage, 2 rotating between the fire stairs and service entrance. Professional, well-armed, not insurmountable. Can you get us in? I can get you past the external surveillance, but once you're inside, you're on your own. Katerina looked at Victoria. The evidence you have, the encrypted drive, is it really enough to bring them down? Financial records, communication logs, video of Phoenix systems in action, names, dates, locations, everything. Everything except the source. Victoria frowned. What do you mean? Someone inside your company helped build this operation. Someone with high-level access. Someone who's been feeding Hayes information for years. Katerina's expression was grave. Have you considered who that might be? The question hung in the air. Victoria thought about everyone who had access to Sterling Defense's secure systems. Executives, board members, security personnel. Security personnel. Daniel, she whispered. Your ex-husband. Katerina nodded. Marcus Webb, head of security for Sterling Defense. His name is Daniel Webb. Daniel. Is it? I have records showing he's used several names over the years. Daniel Webb, Marcus Webb, David Walker. All variations, all connected to intelligence operations that were never officially acknowledged. Victoria felt the blood drain from her face. He was CIA. He told me that when we were married. He was something, but I don't think it was CIA. What are you saying? Katerina pulled up a file on her screen. Your ex-husband has been working for Hayes for at least 7 years, before your marriage, before he ever approached you at that defense conference. That's impossible. We met by accident. He was working security for an event where he knew you would be speaking, about weapon systems, about the future of autonomous warfare. Katerina's voice was gentle but firm. Victoria, your marriage wasn't an accident. It was an operation. The words hit Victoria like a physical blow. She staggered backward, and Marcus was there, steadying her with a hand on her arm. Easy. Breathe. He targeted me. From the beginning, everything. The courtship, the wedding, the years of fighting and making up and fighting again. It was a long-term infiltration, Katerina confirmed. He married you to gain access to Sterling Defense, to position himself inside one of the largest defense contractors in the country. But we divorced 3 years ago. If I was his mission, why did he let me go? Because you were becoming suspicious. Because you were starting to ask questions about security protocols and funding discrepancies. It was easier to position himself as a disgruntled ex-employee with a grudge than to maintain the facade of a loving husband. But I hired him. After the divorce, I brought him back into the company. Yes, and that's when the operation really began. Marcus spoke up. The software he installed on your devices, it wasn't for security. It was for surveillance. Victoria remembered. Daniel insisting that she upgrade her security protocols. Daniel explaining why he needed access to all her personal devices. Daniel promising that he would protect her from any threats. While he was the threat all along. He's been watching everything I do, Victoria said. Every file I accessed, every person I contacted. He knew I was investigating Phoenix. More than that, Katerina pulled up another screen. He knew exactly what you found and when, which means he knew you would try to expose it, which means the ambush this morning. It wasn't about killing me. It was about controlling me. Hayes needs your biometric access, your security clearances, your authority to approve certain transactions. They can't just kill you. They need what you know and who you are. Victoria felt the walls closing in. Her entire adult life had been built on a foundation of lies. Her marriage, her career, her company. The evidence in my apartment, she said slowly. Daniel would know about it. He would know where I'd hide it. Katerina nodded. Which means it's probably already gone, or worse, replaced with something that incriminates you instead of them. Then we have nothing. Not nothing. Katerina's eyes gleamed. You have backups, cloud servers, offshore storage, things even Daniel doesn't know about. He might, if he's been monitoring me as long as you say. There's one thing he couldn't monitor. Katerina leaned forward. Your mind. Tell me, Victoria, where is the one place you would hide something that no one could ever find? Victoria was quiet for a long moment. Then she looked at Marcus, and something passed between them, an understanding that went beyond words. My father, she said slowly. He was Army. 20 years in military intelligence. When I was a girl, he taught me things. How to read people. How to spot lies. How to hide information in plain sight. What kind of information? Numbers, codes, access keys. He made me memorize sequences before I was old enough to understand what they meant. Said someday I might need them. And did you? Victoria smiled grimly. I created a backup protocol, a way to access everything without any physical evidence. The decryption keys, the server locations, the authentication sequences, they're all in my head. Daniel could search my entire life and never find them. Marcus stared at her with something like awe. You've been carrying this around with you the whole time? I told you, my father taught me well. Katerina laughed. Dangerous indeed. All right, new plan. We don't need to get into your apartment. We need access to a secure terminal that can reach your offshore servers. Where? I have facilities here, but they're not secure enough for what you're describing. We'd need military-grade encryption, something that can't be traced or intercepted. I know a place, Marcus said quietly. Both women looked at him. Where? Victoria asked. Fort Belvoir. There's a communications center there that I used during my time in the teams. It's offline, decommissioned after the Afghanistan drawdown. But the equipment is still in place. You can get us in? I know the access codes. They were never changed because the facility was supposed to be mothballed. No one's used it in years. Katerina considered this. It could work, but Fort Belvoir is still an active military installation. Getting in and out without being detected. Leave that to me. Victoria looked at Marcus. This man who'd lost everything, who'd been betrayed by the same institutions he'd served, who was now risking his life to help her expose a conspiracy that had murdered his friends. Why are you doing this? She asked. Really? You've already given up so much. Your home, your business, your safety. Why keep going? Marcus was quiet for a moment. When he spoke, his voice was rough with emotion. Because my daughter asks me questions I can't answer. About why some people hurt others. About why bad things happen to good people. About what heroes do. What do you tell her? I tell her that heroes protect people who can't protect themselves, even when it's hard, even when it hurts. He met Victoria's eyes. I've spent 5 years hiding from who I am, running from the past, pretending I could just be a normal father living a normal life. But men like Hayes don't stop. They don't retire. They don't grow a conscience and make amends. They just find new ways to hurt people, new technologies, new victims. So you're doing this for Zoe. I'm doing this for everyone. For Amira, for my team, for my wife, for every innocent person who's been caught in the crossfire of men who think human lives are just numbers on a spreadsheet. He paused, looking at Victoria with an intensity that made her breath catch. And I'm doing it for you. Because you crashed into my life and reminded me that some things are worth fighting for. Victoria felt tears building in her eyes. I'm not worth dying for. That's not your decision to make. Before she could respond, Katerina's equipment suddenly erupted in alarms. We have a problem. The older woman's fingers flew across her keyboard. Hayes's people are moving. Tactical teams deploying across the city. They're looking for something. Us? Worse. Katerina pulled up a communication intercept, her face going pale. They're not just looking. They're preparing. Something about a timeline moving up. Something about the summit. What summit? Victoria asked. The The Secretary of Defense Summit, 3 days from now. Every major defense official, military commander, and intelligence leader in the country will be in one location. And Hayes is planning something. Not just planning. Katerina's voice was grim. Executing. He's going to attack the summit. Use it as a demonstration of Phoenix capabilities. Maximum casualties. Maximum political impact.
That's hundreds of people, Victoria breathed. Maybe thousands.
And the perfect justification for deploying autonomous weapons systems nationwide. Marcus's jaw tightened. Emergency powers, martial law, unlimited funding for every project Hayes has been developing. We have to warn them. Warn them of what? We have no proof, no evidence that anyone will believe. They'll dismiss us as conspiracy theorists, or worse. Katerina shook her head. He's right. Without documentation, without proof, no one will listen. Hayes has spent years building his reputation. He's a decorated officer, a respected commander. Against your word and the word of a dishonorably discharged soldier, then we get the proof. Victoria's voice was steel. We access those servers, download everything, and make sure the world sees what Hayes really is. We have 3 days. Then we'd better move fast. Marcus checked his weapon, his expression hardening into something cold and dangerous. Fort Belvoir is a 2-hour drive. We go tonight, after dark. Katerina, I need everything you have on current security protocols and patrol schedules. You'll have it within the hour. Victoria, I'm coming with you. It's too dangerous. I'm the only one who knows the access codes, the authentication sequences. Without me, you can't get into the servers. Marcus wanted to argue, but he knew she was right. Fine, but you stay behind me. You do exactly what I say. And if things go wrong, we go down fighting. Victoria met his gaze without flinching. Together, that was the deal. Despite everything, the danger, the betrayal, the impossible odds they faced, Marcus felt something warm spread through his chest. Together, he agreed. Outside the safe house, the afternoon sun was beginning to fade. Somewhere in Washington, Hayes was preparing to commit mass murder. Somewhere in Georgetown, Daniel Webb was searching for the wife he'd betrayed. And somewhere in the Blue Ridge Mountains, a little girl was waiting for her father to come home. 3 days until the summit. 3 days to expose a conspiracy that reached into the highest levels of American power. 3 days to save hundreds of lives, including their own. Marcus looked at Victoria, at this woman who'd crashed into his life and changed everything. Ready? He asked. She took his hand, her fingers intertwining with his. Ready. The darkness swallowed them whole as Marcus guided the truck along the access road toward Fort Belvoir. No headlights, no radio, just the rumble of the engine and the weight of what lay ahead. Victoria sat in the passenger seat, her mind running through the authentication sequences she'd memorized years ago. Numbers and codes that had seemed like abstract puzzles when her father taught them to her. Now they were the only thing standing between Hayes and mass murder. You're quiet, Marcus said.
Thinking about Daniel? Victoria flinched at the name. About how blind I was.
3 years of marriage. 3 years of sharing my life, my bed, my secrets, with a man who was using me the whole time. You couldn't have known. Couldn't I? The signs were there. The jealousy, the controlling behavior, the way he always seemed to know things he shouldn't have known. She laughed bitterly. I thought he was just insecure. Turns out he was reporting everything to Hayes. That's not your fault. Isn't it? I'm supposed to be smart. I run a billion-dollar company. I outmaneuver senators and generals. But I couldn't see that my own husband was a spy. Marcus was quiet for a moment. Then, my wife used to say that love makes us blind in ways that intelligence can't fix. That trusting someone isn't a weakness. It's a choice. And when that trust is betrayed, the fault lies with the betrayer, not the person who trusted. She sounds wise. She was. Wiser than me, anyway. How did you meet her? High school. Millbrook. I was the angry kid from the wrong side of town. She was the preacher's daughter who thought she could save everyone. Marcus smiled at the memory. She was wrong about saving everyone, but she saved me. What happened? Cancer. Diagnosed 6 months after I came back from Afghanistan. She fought it for over a year, but his voice trailed off. She made me promise to keep living, to raise Zoe right, to find something worth fighting for. And did you? Marcus looked at her. In the darkness, she could barely see his face, but she felt the intensity of his gaze. I'm starting to think I did. The perimeter fence of Fort Belvoir appeared ahead. Marcus killed the engine, letting the truck coast to a stop behind a cluster of trees. The decommissioned section is half a mile east. There's a maintenance access point that was never properly secured. We go in on foot, stay low, avoid patrols.
How many patrols? If Katerina's intel is right, 2, rotating on 30-minute intervals. We'll have a window of about 12 minutes between passes.
And if her intel is wrong?
Then we improvise.
They moved through the darkness with Marcus leading, his body low and fluid. Victoria followed, matching his movements as best she could. The skills her father had taught her, awareness, silence, patience, came back like muscle memory. The maintenance access point was exactly where Marcus remembered, a rusted gate secured by a padlock that hadn't been changed in years. Old codes still work, Marcus muttered, entering a sequence on the electronic keypad. The lock clicked open. Government efficiency at its finest. Inside, the decommissioned section was a graveyard of outdated technology. Rows of servers that had once processed classified intelligence. Communication arrays that had coordinated operations across the globe. All dark now, waiting for decommissioning that budget cuts kept delaying. The secure terminal is in the command center. This way. The command center was smaller than Victoria expected. A single room filled with equipment that looked ancient by modern standards, but would serve their purpose perfectly. Can you access the servers from here? Should be able to. The hard lines are still active. They were never officially cut because the paperwork was never completed. Marcus powered up a terminal, its screen flickering to life with a green glow. You're up. Victoria sat at the terminal, her fingers hovering over the keyboard. For a moment, she hesitated. What's wrong? I'm about to access files that could bring down some of the most powerful people in Washington. Once I do this, there's no going back. For either of us. There was no going back the moment Hayes sent his men after you. I know, but I wanted you to understand what we're doing. It's not just about exposing a conspiracy. It's about declaring war on people who have spent decades learning how to destroy their enemies. They will come for us. They will come for everyone we love. Marcus knelt beside her, taking her hand in his. Victoria, I've been to war. I've lost friends, family, everything I thought mattered. But I've learned something in all that loss. Some fights are worth having, even if you know you might lose. Some principles are worth dying for. Is this one of those fights? A man is planning to murder hundreds of people to justify a weapons program that will kill thousands more. A little girl was executed because she knew too much. My brothers died because they trusted the wrong person. His grip tightened. Yeah, this is one of those fights. Victoria nodded slowly. Then she turned to the keyboard and began typing. The authentication sequences flowed from her memory like water, numbers and codes that unlocked servers across 3 continents. Each keystroke brought them closer to the evidence that would end Hayes's operation. And the evidence, that would end their normal lives forever.
"I'm in,"
she whispered. Files began appearing on the screen. Financial records, communication logs, video files, documents stamped with classification levels that made Marcus's eyes widen. Jesus, this goes higher than I thought.
Pentagon, intelligence community, defense contractors, congressional oversight committees.
Victoria scrolled through the names.
Hayes didn't just corrupt a few officers. He built an entire network, an empire within the empire.
Download everything.
Already am. But Marcus, some of these names, these are people I know, people I've done business with, people I thought were...
Good people can do terrible things when they convince themselves it's for the right reasons. I learned that in Afghanistan. The download progress bar crept forward. 60%. 70. 80. A sound from outside made them both freeze. Footsteps. Multiple sets. Moving with purpose. We've got company, Marcus breathed.
The download isn't finished.
How long?
3 minutes, maybe 4.
Marcus checked his weapon. Stay here. Finish the download. I'll buy you time.
Marcus.
3 minutes. Then you run, no matter what happens. Before she could argue, he was gone, slipping through the door into the darkness beyond. Victoria forced herself to focus on the screen. 90%. 92. The footsteps were getting closer. She could hear voices now, professional, clipped, tactical. Spread out, check every room. They're here somewhere. 95%. Gunshots erupted from somewhere in the building. Victoria flinched, but kept her eyes on the screen. 97%. More gunshots. A scream cut short. The sound of bodies hitting concrete. 99%. Complete. Victoria yanked the drive from the terminal and shoved it into her pocket. Her hand found the pistol Marcus had given her, the weight both terrifying and reassuring. She moved toward the door, staying low, listening for any sign of movement. Victoria Sterling. The voice came from behind her. She spun, gun raised, heart pounding. Daniel Webb stood in the doorway, his own weapon trained on her chest. He looked exactly as she remembered. Handsome, confident, cruel in ways she'd never let herself see before. "Hello, darling," he said. "Miss me?"
"Daniel."
"Actually, I go by Marcus now. Marcus Webb. Has a nice ring to it, don't you think?"
"You used me."
"I did what I was ordered to do. You were an asset, a means to an end. I never expected you to be quite so stubborn about it."
"Stubborn? You call discovering that my company was being used to sell weapons to terrorists stubborn?"
"I call it inconvenient." Daniel moved closer, his gun never wavering. "You were supposed to be manageable, a pretty face signing paperwork and attending conferences. Instead, you had to go digging, had to play investigator. I was protecting my company." "Your company?" he laughed. "Your company has been ours for years. Every contract, every technology, every connection, all feeding into Phoenix. You were just too blind to see it." "Because I trusted you." "Yes, that was your weakness. You wanted so badly to believe that someone could love you for who you are, not what you have." Daniel's smile turned cruel. "You should have known better. Women like you, powerful, driven, ambitious, we don't get loved. We get used." Victoria felt something cold settle in her chest. Not fear, something harder. Something that had been building since she'd watched Marcus kill to protect her. Since she'd pulled the trigger herself. "You're wrong," she said quietly. "Am I?"
Someone does love me for who I am, not what I have, not what I can do for them.
Daniel's smile flickered. The mechanic? Please. He's a broken soldier with a death wish. He's not saving you because he loves you. He's saving you because he couldn't save that little girl in Afghanistan. Maybe that's how it started, but that's not what it is now. You barely know him. I know enough. I know he's the first person in years who looked at me and saw something other than a weapon or a target or a trophy. I know he risked everything to protect a stranger because it was the right thing to do. And I know, Victoria's voice hardened, I know he's going to kill you if you don't put down that gun. Daniel laughed. Your mechanic is a little busy right now. My men have him pinned down in the North Corridor. He's good, I'll give him that, but he's outnumbered. In about 2 minutes, this will all be over. You're right, it will be. Victoria moved before Daniel could react. The pistol came up, and she fired, not at his chest, where his body armor would stop the round, but at his knee. Daniel screamed and collapsed, his weapon clattering away. Victoria was on him in an instant, kicking the gun out of reach, pressing her own barrel against his forehead. The codes, she hissed. The activation codes for the Phoenix systems at the summit. Give them to me. Go to hell. She fired again, this time into his shoulder. Daniel's scream echoed through the empty building. I spent 3 years married to you, Victoria said, her voice terrifyingly calm. 3 years listening to your lies, believing your excuses, thinking your jealousy was love. Do you have any idea what that does to a person? How it feels to realize that everything you thought was real was just manipulation? Victoria, the codes, now, or the next one goes through your head. Daniel stared up at her, and for the first time, she saw fear in his eyes. Real fear. The kind that came from realizing you'd completely underestimated an opponent. There's a server, he gasped. In the hotel, basement level. It controls all the Phoenix units. The code is... Gunfire erupted nearby. Marcus's voice called out, urgent and desperate. Victoria, we need to go! She looked down at Daniel, this man who had stolen years of her life, who had helped murder innocent people, who would have handed her over to Hayes without a second thought. You should have just divorced me, she said. You should have walked away and found someone else to use. Victoria, please! But you couldn't, could you? You couldn't stand that I was successful, that I was powerful, that I didn't need you. She stood, keeping the gun trained on him. Well, you're right about one thing. I don't need you. I never did. She turned and ran toward Marcus's voice. The North Corridor was a war zone. 3 of Daniel's men lay dead on the concrete. Marcus was crouched behind a support pillar, blood seeping from a wound in his side. You're hit, Victoria gasped. It's nothing. We need to move. Marcus! Later. Right now, we run. They ran. Through corridors and access tunnels, past equipment that hadn't been used in years. Behind them, Victoria could hear Daniel screaming orders, rallying what remained of his team. The maintenance access point was just ahead when Marcus stumbled. Keep going, he said, but his voice was weak. The blood loss was worse than he'd admitted. I'm not leaving you. Victoria, I said no. She ducked under his arm, taking his weight. We do this together. That was the deal. They burst through the gate into the cold night air. The truck was 50 yards away, hidden in the trees. 50 yards that might as well have been 50 miles. Footsteps behind them. Flashlights cutting through the darkness. There! Stop them! Victoria half-carried, half-dragged Marcus toward the truck. Her muscles screamed. Her lungs burned, but she didn't stop. 20 yards. 15. 10. A shot rang out. Victoria felt fire lance across her already injured shoulder. She stumbled, but kept moving. 5 yards.
She yanked open the passenger door, shoved Marcus inside, then threw herself into the driver's seat. The keys were still in the ignition. The engine roared to life. Victoria floored the accelerator. Bullets pinged off the truck's body as they tore through the trees and onto the access road. In the rearview mirror, she could see flashlights converging on their position. But they were too late. Victoria drove like a woman possessed, pushing the truck to its limits on roads that weren't meant for speed. Beside her, Marcus pressed his hand against his side, trying to stem the blood flow. "How bad?" she demanded. "I'll live. You?" "Shoulder grazed. Nothing serious." "You shot Daniel." "Twice."
Despite everything, the pain, the danger, the chaos of the last hour, Marcus laughed. "Remind me never to piss you off." He had it coming. That he did. They drove in silence for several minutes. Victoria's hands were shaking on the wheel, the adrenaline beginning to fade, replaced by the bone-deep exhaustion of survival. "The evidence," Marcus said finally. "Did you get it?" "Everything. Financial records, communications, video files, and—" She paused. "I got the activation codes for the Phoenix systems at the summit." "What?" "Daniel told me. There's a server in the hotel basement that controls all the units. If we can reach it, we can shut them down before they activate." "He just told you?" "I was persuasive." Marcus stared at her. "Who are you?" "I'm someone who's done being a victim." Victoria met his gaze. "For 3 years, I let Daniel make me feel small, stupid, weak. I believed his lies because it was easier than admitting I'd made a mistake. But I'm done with that. Done being used. Done being underestimated."
You weren't weak. You were trusting."
Same thing, in the end.
"No."
Marcus's voice was firm despite his weakness.
Trust takes courage. It takes strength to let someone into your life, to make yourself vulnerable. The fact that Daniel betrayed that trust, that's on him, not you.
Victoria felt tears building in her eyes.
"He said you were just saving me because of that little girl. Because you couldn't save her."
"Maybe that's how it started," Marcus admitted. "When you crashed into my garage, all I could think about was Amira. About failing her. About the promise I made at her grave.
And now?
Now I think about you. About the way you fought through your fear to help me in that garage. About the way you insisted on coming with me tonight, even though you knew it might kill you. About the way you looked at Daniel when you realized what he'd done. Like something inside you had finally woken up."
"What are you saying?"
Marcus reached over and took her hand. His grip was weak from blood loss, but his eyes were clear. "I'm saying that somewhere between the bullets and the fire and the running for our lives, you stopped being someone I was protecting, and started being someone I—" He hesitated. "Someone I can't imagine losing." Victoria's tears spilled over.
"You barely know me."
"I know enough."
"I could be anyone. I could be just like Daniel, using you for my own purposes."
"You're not."
"How do you know?"
"Because Daniel would have left me in that corridor. He would have taken the evidence and run. But you came back, even when you didn't have to, even when it put you in danger." Marcus squeezed her hand. "That's who you are, Victoria. That's the woman I'm—" He didn't finish the sentence. His eyes rolled back, and his grip went slack.
"Marcus? Marcus!"
Victoria pulled off the road, her heart hammering. She checked his pulse, weak but steady. The wound in his side had soaked through his shirt.
"Don't you dare,"
she whispered, pressing her hands against the injury.
"Don't you dare die on me. Not now. Not after everything."
His eyes fluttered open. "Still here."
"You need a hospital."
"Can't. They'll be watching. all of them.
Then where?
Katerina, her safe house. She has medical supplies, people who can help. Victoria pulled back onto the road, driving as fast as she dared. The night blurred past, a smear of darkness and fear and desperate hope.
Stay with me, she said. Stay awake. Keep talking.
About what?
Anything. Tell me about Zoe. Tell me what she's like.
Marcus smiled weakly. She's perfect. Stubborn, smart, asks questions I can't answer.
Like what?
Like why God took her mommy, why some people hurt others, whether heroes are real.
What do you tell her?
That heroes are real. They're just regular people who decide to do hard things when it matters.
Do you believe that?
I'm starting to. His eyes found hers. Because of you. Victoria drove through tears, through pain, through the certainty that everything had changed. The evidence was in her pocket. The codes were in her head. And the man beside her, this wounded warrior who'd given up everything to protect a stranger, was slipping away.
We're close, she said. Just hold on. A few more minutes.
Victoria, don't. Whatever you're about to say, just save it. Tell me when we're safe. If I don't, you will. You promised your daughter you'd come home. You promised me we'd do this together. Her voice cracked. You don't break promises, remember? Marcus was quiet for a long moment. Then, I remember. The safe house appeared ahead. Victoria pulled up to the door, laying on the horn. Within seconds, Katerina emerged, took one look at Marcus's condition, and started barking orders. Inside, now! I have supplies. They carried Marcus into the house, laid him on a table that had clearly been used for this purpose before. Katerina worked with the efficiency of someone who had treated combat wounds many times.
The bullet went clean through. Missed the major organs. He's lucky.
Lucky, Victoria repeated hollowly.
He'll live, but he needs rest. Real rest. Not whatever you two have been doing for the last 24 hours.
Victoria looked down at Marcus. His eyes were closed, his breathing shallow but steady. The color was already returning to his face.
We got the evidence, Victoria said. Everything we need. Good, because we just ran out of time.
What do you mean? Katerina gestured toward her monitors.
Hayes is accelerating the timeline. The attack on the summit. It's happening tomorrow. Not 3 days from now. Tomorrow.
Victoria felt her blood turn to ice.
That's impossible. The summit doesn't officially start until the opening reception. Tonight.
Hayes is using the reception as cover. By this time tomorrow, everyone who matters in American defense policy will be dead, and Phoenix will be activated across the country. Victoria looked at Marcus, unconscious on the table. Then at Katerina, whose face held the grim acceptance of someone who had seen too many plans fall apart.
Then we stop him,
Victoria said quietly.
Tonight.
With what army?
With us. You, me, and whatever allies we can gather in the next few hours.
Against Hayes? Against his entire network? Victoria thought about everything she'd lost, everything she'd learned, everything she'd become since a car crash had changed her life forever.
I have the evidence. I have the activation codes. And I have something Hayes doesn't expect.
What's that? Victoria looked at the monitors showing the hotel where hundreds of people would soon gather, unaware of the death that waited for them.
The will to burn it all down. Whatever it takes.
Marcus woke to the sound of voices arguing. His side burned where the bullet had torn through him, but the pain was manageable now. Someone had stitched him up, pumped him full of antibiotics and painkillers. He recognized Katerina's work.
He can't go. Look at him.
Victoria's voice, fierce, protective. He won't stay behind, you know that. Katerina, calm and pragmatic.
Then we make him stay. Tie him to the bed if we have to.
Try it. Both women turned at the sound of Marcus's voice. He pushed himself up from the table, ignoring the protest of torn muscle and damaged tissue.
Marcus, you need to rest.
Hayes is attacking tonight. You really think I'm going to lie here while you walk into that alone?
You can barely stand.
I've fought with worse. He swung his legs off the table, testing his balance. The room swayed for a moment, then steadied. What's the plan? Victoria and Katerina exchanged glances. Something had shifted between them in the hours Marcus had been unconscious. An understanding, a shared determination that went beyond their earlier wariness. The opening reception starts in 4 hours, Victoria said. 300 guests. Defense Secretary Morrison, Joint Chiefs Chairman Bradley, heads of every major defense contractor, key congressional committee members. And Hayes's Phoenix units? Already in position, disguised as service equipment throughout the hotel. Katerina's people have identified at least 40 units in the ballroom alone. 40? And more in the hallways, the kitchen, the parking structure. Hayes isn't just planning an attack. He's planning a massacre. Marcus felt ice settle in his chest. 40 autonomous weapons in one room, each capable of identifying and eliminating multiple targets in seconds. The carnage would be unimaginable. The activation codes, he said. You got them from Daniel. The units are controlled by a central server in the hotel basement. If we can reach it, we can shut them down before they activate. And Hayes? Victoria's jaw tightened. Hayes will be there, overseeing everything, making sure his life's work succeeds. So we need to get into a secured hotel, reach a basement server without being detected, shut down 40 killer robots, and somehow deal with Hayes and whatever security he has in place. That's the basic outline, yes. With what resources? Katerina stepped forward. I have people, not many, but enough. Former intelligence operatives who owe me favors. They can create diversions, feed us information, help coordinate our movements. How many? 8, plus the 3 of us. 11 people against Hayes's entire network. 11 people who know the truth. Victoria moved closer to him, her eyes burning with determination. 11 people who are willing to die to stop this. Marcus studied her face. The fear was still there. He could see it in the tightness around her eyes, the slight tremble in her hands. But beneath that fear was something else. Steel. Purpose. The same transformation he'd witnessed in the garage when she'd picked up a rifle and started shooting. You've changed, he said quietly. I had to. No. You didn't have to. You chose to. He reached out, cupping her face in his hand. That takes courage. Real courage. The kind that doesn't come from training or experience. The kind that comes from deciding who you want to be. Victoria leaned into his touch. I want to be someone my father would be proud of. Someone who stands up when it matters. He'd be proud. Trust me. How do you know? Because I'm proud. And I've only known you for 2 days. Despite everything, the danger, the impossible odds, the pain radiating through his body, Marcus felt something warm spread through his chest. Something he hadn't felt since Rebecca died. Hope. If you two are finished with your moment, Katerina interrupted dryly, we have a massacre to prevent. The Omni Shoreham Hotel rose against the evening sky like a monument to power and privilege. Limousines lined the circular drive, disgorging Washington's elite in their finest attire. Secret Service agents in dark suits scanned the crowds with practiced vigilance. None of them knew that death waited inside. Marcus adjusted the catering uniform Katerina had provided, feeling the familiar weight of concealed weapons against his body. The wound in his side had been tightly bandaged, the painkillers dulling the worst of it. He wasn't at full strength, but he was functional. That would have to be enough. "Comms check," Katerina's voice crackled in his earpiece. "Alpha, standing by." Marcus. "Bravo, in position." Victoria. "All teams, we are go. Remember, the server room is the primary objective. Everything else is secondary." Marcus slipped through the service entrance, falling in with a group of catering staff carrying trays of champagne. No one looked twice at another black face among the servers. That was one of Hayes's blind spots. His racism made him underestimate anyone who didn't look like him. It would be his downfall. "I'm in," Marcus murmured, moving toward the service elevator. "Copy. Victoria is approaching the ballroom entrance now." Marcus navigated the service corridors with practiced ease. 20 years of military operations had taught him how to move through hostile territory, how to blend in while remaining alert to every threat. The service elevator took him down to the basement level. The doors opened onto a corridor that should have been empty, but wasn't. 2 guards, professional, armed, positioned outside a door marked mechanical. The server room. "I've got eyes on the target," Marcus whispered. 2 hostiles. "Can you take them?" "Affirmative." "But it's going to make noise. Hold position. Victoria is about to make her entrance. Wait for the distraction." Marcus pressed himself into a shadowed alcove, watching the guards through a crack in the wall. His hand rested on the grip of his suppressed pistol, muscles coiled and ready. "Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Secretary of Defense's annual summit reception." The voice echoed from somewhere above, the ballroom PA system. Marcus could picture the scene. Hundreds of the most powerful people in American defense policy, gathered in one room, surrounded by machines designed to kill them. "We have a special guest this evening who would like to say a few words. Please welcome the CEO of Sterling Defense Technologies, Victoria Sterling." Marcus felt his heart stop. That wasn't the plan. "Victoria, what are you doing?" Katerina's voice was sharp with alarm. "Improvising." Victoria's response was calm. Too calm. "Trust me." Through the earpiece, Marcus could hear the murmur of the crowd, the rustle of expensive fabrics, the clink of champagne glasses. Then Victoria's voice, amplified by microphone, clear and strong. "Thank you all for being here tonight. I know you're expecting the usual pleasantries, empty words about partnership and progress and the future of American defense. But I'm afraid I have something more important to share." The murmur of the crowd shifted. Uncertainty. Confusion. "What the hell is she doing?" Katerina hissed. Marcus didn't answer. He was moving, using Victoria's distraction to close the distance to the guards. "For the past 6 months," Victoria continued, "I have been investigating a conspiracy within my own company. A conspiracy that reaches into the highest levels of our government. A conspiracy called Project Phoenix." The crowd noise spiked. Gasps, whispered conversations. The distinctive sound of Secret Service agents moving to high alert. "I have evidence, financial records, communications logs, video footage, proving that certain individuals within this room have been selling autonomous weapons technology to foreign adversaries. Technology that has already been used to murder innocent civilians, including an 8-year-old girl in Afghanistan whose only crime was helping American soldiers." Marcus reached the first guard just as the man's hand moved toward his earpiece. One strike to the throat, a second to the temple. The guard crumpled silently. The second guard turned, eyes widening, hand reaching for his weapon. Marcus was faster. A chokehold from behind, cutting off blood flow to the brain. 5 seconds of struggle, then stillness. Primary hostiles neutralized, Marcus reported, moving to the server room. But Victoria wasn't finished. The man responsible for this conspiracy is here tonight. Colonel Victor Hayes, a decorated officer, a respected leader, and a mass murderer who is planning to use this very reception as a demonstration of his weapons capabilities. Chaos erupted. Screams, the thunder of running feet, Secret Service agents shouting orders, and beneath it all, a sound that made Marcus's blood run cold. A mechanical whine, servos activating, weapon systems coming online. "They're activating the Phoenix units," Katerina shouted. "Victoria, get out of there!" "Not yet." Victoria's voice was steel. "Hayes, I know you're listening. I know you're about to kill everyone in this room to prove a point. But here's something you didn't count on." Marcus burst through the server room door, weapon raised. 3 technicians sat at computer terminals, their faces frozen in shock. "Hands up, now!" They complied, scrambling away from their stations. Marcus crossed to the primary terminal, his eyes scanning the display. Activation protocols were running. The Phoenix units were seconds away from going live. "Victoria, I need the codes." Alpha 7739, Delta 2216, Omega 9900. Marcus typed frantically, his fingers stumbling over the keys. The wound in his side screamed as he moved, blood seeping through the bandages. But he didn't stop. "Access denied." "What?" "The codes aren't working. Something's wrong. Try again." He did. Same result. "Hayes changed them," Victoria realized. He knew. He knew I had the codes." On the monitors, Marcus could see the ballroom descending into pandemonium. People running for exits, Secret Service agents drawing weapons, and among them, moving with predatory grace, the Phoenix units. Mechanical spiders emerging from their hiding places, weapons ports opening, targeting systems acquiring. "Victoria, run!" "No. Damn it, you can't! I said no!" Her voice cut through the chaos with absolute certainty. "I'm not running. Not anymore." Through the camera feed, Marcus watched Victoria step away from the podium, not toward the exits, but toward the center of the room, where the Phoenix units were converging. "Hayes," she shouted, "I know you can see me. I know you're controlling these things. So why don't you stop hiding behind your machines and face me yourself?" For a long moment, nothing happened. Then a door at the far end of the ballroom opened, and Colonel Victor Hayes stepped through. He looked exactly as Marcus remembered. Silver hair, cold blue eyes. The easy confidence of a man who had never faced a consequence in his life. "Mrs. Sterling," Hayes's voice carried across the chaos. "I underestimated you. That doesn't happen often." "Call off your machines." "Why would I do that? I have 300 of the most important people in American defense policy trapped in this room. 300 people who have been holding back progress for decades. Tonight, they become martyrs. Tomorrow, the country demands answers. And the day after that, Phoenix goes global. I know. I've read your plans." "Then you know this is bigger than both of us. Bigger than individual lives. This is evolution, Mrs. Sterling. The next step in human warfare. This is murder. This is necessity." Hayes gestured, and a Phoenix unit scuttled toward Victoria, its weapons array focusing on her chest. "I really did hope we could work together. You're intelligent, capable. With proper guidance, you could have been an asset." "I'm nobody's asset." "No, you're not." Hayes' smile turned cold. Your collateral damage.
Marcus was already moving, back through the corridor, up the service stairs, toward the ballroom. His side was on fire, his vision blurring at the edges. But none of that mattered. Victoria was about to die. Katerina, I need an entry point to the ballroom. Now. Service door, east side. But Marcus, the Phoenix units... I don't care about the Phoenix units.
I care about her. He burst through the service door into chaos. Screaming guests, overturned tables, Phoenix units moving through the crowd, their targeting systems tracking multiple contacts. But they weren't firing. Not yet. Hayes was savoring the moment. Marcus raised his weapon and shot the unit closest to Victoria through its sensor array. The machine collapsed in a shower of sparks. Every Phoenix unit in the room turned toward him. "Hayes!" Marcus's voice cut through the chaos. "Remember me?" The colonel's composure cracked for just a moment. "Jackson, I thought Daniel killed you." Daniel missed, just like he missed everything else about Victoria. Marcus moved forward, his weapon steady despite the pain tearing through his body. "But then, you've always been good at underestimating people, especially people who don't look like you. You're outnumbered, outgunned. One damaged soldier against 40 autonomous weapon systems. I've faced worse odds. Ask any of my brothers who died because of your betrayal. Your brothers died because you were weak, because you couldn't do what needed to be done. My brothers died because you sold them out for money, because you decided that human lives were worth less than your weapons contracts." Marcus took another step forward. "But here's the thing, Hayes. They're not here anymore. So I have to be strong enough for all of them." Victoria was moving. While Hayes focused on Marcus, she was circling toward the fallen Phoenix unit, toward the exposed circuitry where Marcus's shot had penetrated. "You can't stop this," Hayes said. "Even if you kill me, the activation sequence is already running. In 60 seconds, every Phoenix unit in this building will begin eliminating targets." "Then I'd better work fast," Marcus charged. The Phoenix units opened fire, but Marcus was already diving, rolling, using every piece of cover the chaotic ballroom offered. Bullets sparked off metal and marble around him, but none found their mark. Hayes drew his sidearm, but he'd spent too many years behind desks and command centers. His reflexes were slow. His aim was poor. Marcus's wasn't. One shot to Hayes's gun hand. The weapon clattered away. A second shot to his knee. Hayes collapsed with a scream. Marcus stood over him, his weapon pressed against the colonel's forehead. "The codes. Now. Go to hell." "Victoria!" She looked up from the Phoenix unit she'd been examining. "I found it! The master control frequency. If I can..." A Phoenix unit was targeting her. Its weapons array was charging, red lights blinking in sequence. Marcus had a choice. Kill Hayes or save Victoria. There was no choice. He spun, fired, and the Phoenix unit's sensor cluster exploded. It collapsed just as its weapons discharged, the shots going wild into the ceiling. But Marcus had turned his back on Hayes. The colonel's backup weapon, a small pistol concealed in an ankle holster, came up fast. Marcus saw it too late, braced himself for the impact. The shot never came. Victoria had crossed the distance in seconds. Her heel, a 5-inch stiletto from a designer whose name Marcus couldn't pronounce, drove into Hayes's wrist with devastating force. Bones crunched. The pistol fell. Before Hayes could react, Victoria had the weapon in her hand, pressed against his temple. "The codes," she said, "or I end this right now." "You won't. You're not a killer." "I killed Daniel. I'll kill you too." Her voice was ice. "But I'd rather make you suffer. I'd rather watch you spend the rest of your life in a cell, knowing that everything you built was destroyed by the people you underestimated." Hayes stared at her. For the first time, Marcus saw real fear in those cold blue eyes. Sigma 5581, Hayes spat. Override code. It will shut down all units. Victoria didn't move.
Marcus?
He was already at the nearest Phoenix unit, accessing its control panel. Sigma 5581. For an agonizing moment, nothing happened. Then, one by one, the Phoenix units throughout the ballroom powered down. Their weapons arrays retracted. Their sensor lights dimmed. They collapsed into inert heaps of metal and circuitry. It was over. Secret Service agents swarmed the room, securing Hayes, evacuating guests, establishing a perimeter. In the chaos, Marcus found his way to Victoria. She was standing exactly where she'd been, the pistol still in her hand, her eyes still fixed on the spot where Hayes had fallen. "Victoria." She didn't respond. "Victoria, it's over. You can put the gun down." Slowly, like someone waking from a dream, she turned to look at him. Her eyes were wet with tears she hadn't let herself shed until now. "I almost killed him," she whispered. "I wanted to kill him." "But you didn't." "I wanted to. For what he did. For Daniel. For Amira. For all of it," her voice cracked. "What does that make me?" Marcus took the gun from her trembling hands and set it aside. Then he pulled her into his arms, holding her against his chest despite the pain it caused. "It makes you human," he said. "It makes you someone who was pushed to the edge and chose not to fall. That's not weakness, Victoria. That's strength. Real strength." She buried her face in his shoulder and sobbed. Around them, the chaos continued. Agents shouting orders, medics treating the injured, reporters who had somehow gotten past security, capturing footage that would be broadcast around the world within the hour. But in that moment, none of it mattered. Marcus held the woman who had changed his life and let her cry. Let her release the fear and the rage and the grief that had been building since the moment her car crashed through his garage door. "I've got you," he murmured. "I've got you. Don't let go." Never. They stood like that for a long time, two broken people holding each other up, two souls who had found something unexpected in the midst of violence and betrayal, something worth fighting for, something worth living for. Katerina's voice crackled in his earpiece. "Marcus, we've got a problem." He stiffened. "What kind of problem?" "Daniel Webb. He wasn't at the hotel. He escaped from Fort Belvoir and dropped off our radar." Victoria pulled back, her eyes widening. "He's still out there." "Not for long." Marcus's jaw tightened. "He'll come for us. Men like him, they can't let go. Can't accept defeat." "Then we'll be ready." "Victoria, no." Her voice was steel again, the tears already drying on her cheeks. "I'm done running. I'm done hiding. Daniel wants to finish this? Then we finish it, once and for all." Marcus looked at her, this woman who had transformed from a frightened victim into something far more dangerous, far more beautiful. "Together?" he asked. She took his hand, her fingers intertwining with his. "Together." The federal agents wanted statements, interviews, documentation of everything that had happened at the Omni Showroom. But Marcus had only one thought as they escorted him and Victoria out of the chaos. "Zoe. We need to get to the cabin," he said. "Now." Katerina was waiting outside, her face grim. "I've already tried reaching Denise. No answer." Marcus felt his heart stop. "How long?" 20 minutes. She was checking in every hour on the hour. She missed the last 2. Victoria grabbed his arm. "Daniel." "He knows about the cabin. He knows about Zoe." Marcus's voice was barely controlled. "If he's hurt my daughter." "We don't know anything yet." "I know Daniel Webb. I know what he's capable of."
Marcus was already moving toward Katerina's vehicle. He can't beat us. He can't beat Hayes. So he's going after the only thing that matters to me. The drive to the Blue Ridge Mountains took 2 hours.
2 hours of silence. 2 hours of Marcus gripping the steering wheel so hard his knuckles went white. 2 hours of Victoria watching him, wanting to offer comfort, but knowing there were no words that could help. If Daniel had touched Zoe, there would be no mercy, no restraint, no law that would protect him from what Marcus would do. The cabin came into view just as dawn was breaking. The door was open. Marcus was out of the car before it fully stopped, weapon drawn, moving toward the entrance with the lethal grace of a man who had nothing left to lose. "Zoe! Denise!" Silence. He swept through the cabin, room by room. Empty. No signs of struggle in the main area. The kitchen was undisturbed. The bedroom where Zoe had been sleeping. Blood on the floor. Not much. A few drops leading toward the back door, but enough to make Marcus's vision go red at the edges. "Marcus," Victoria's voice was urgent. "There's a note." He found it on the kitchen table, handwritten. Daniel's precise, controlled script. "Your daughter is alive. For now. If you want to keep her that way, come to the old mill on Route 7. Alone. Bring Victoria. Anyone else shows up, the girl dies. You have 1 hour." Marcus read the note 3 times. Each time, the cold fury in his chest grew darker. "He's using her as bait," Victoria said quietly. "I know." "It's a trap." "I know." "Marcus." "He has my daughter." Marcus's voice was ice. "I don't care if it's a trap. I don't care if he has an army waiting. I will walk through hell itself to get her back." "Then I'm coming with you." "Victoria." "Don't." She stepped in front of him, her eyes blazing. "Don't tell me to stay behind. Don't tell me it's too dangerous. That man used me, betrayed me, tried to have me killed, and now he's threatening a child to get to us?" Her voice hardened. "This ends tonight, for both of us." Marcus wanted to argue, wanted to keep her safe, but he looked into her eyes and saw the same steel he'd seen in the hotel ballroom. The same determination that had carried her through firefights and torture and betrayal. She wasn't the frightened woman who'd crashed into his garage anymore. She was a warrior. His warrior. "Together," he said. "Together." The old mill was a ruin on the outskirts of Millbrook, abandoned decades ago when the textile industry moved overseas. Its brick walls were crumbling, its windows dark, its machinery rusted into immobility. The perfect place for a final confrontation. Marcus approached from the east, moving through the pre-dawn shadows with practiced silence. Victoria flanked from the west, her weapon steady, her breathing controlled. Katerina monitored their progress from a distance, ready to call in backup if things went wrong. If things went wrong. As if they could go any more wrong than they already had. The main entrance was unguarded. Too easy. Marcus's instincts screamed trap, but he pushed forward anyway. His daughter was in there. Nothing else mattered. Inside, the mill was a maze of collapsed machinery and rotting wood. Moonlight filtered through holes in the roof, casting strange shadows across the floor. The air smelled of dust and decay, and something else. Fear. "Daddy!" Zoe's voice cut through the darkness like a knife through Marcus's heart. He moved toward the sound, caution forgotten, every fiber of his being focused on reaching his child. "Zoe! Baby, where are you?" "I'm here! There's a bad man!" "That's enough!" Daniel's voice echoed through the mill. She said her piece. Now it's your turn, Marcus. A light flicked on somewhere ahead. Harsh, industrial, illuminating a scene that made Marcus's blood run cold. Zoe sat in a chair at the center of an open area, her hands bound behind her, tears streaming down her face. Daniel stood behind her, one hand on her shoulder, the other holding a pistol, and standing in the shadows around them were at least 6 more armed men. Mercenaries, private contractors, the kind of men who killed for money and didn't ask questions. "Let her go," Marcus said. "I don't think so." Daniel's smile was cruel. "Not until I get what I want." "What do you want?" "Isn't it obvious? I want Victoria. I want the evidence she stole. And I want to watch the look on your face when you realize you can't save everyone." "Daniel." Victoria stepped out of the shadows, her weapon lowered but not discarded. "This is between us. Let the girl go." "Ah, my beautiful ex-wife. I was wondering when you'd show yourself." Daniel's eyes raked over her with possessive hunger. "You've changed. There's something harder about you now. I like it." "Let her go." "You don't give the orders anymore, Victoria. That was always your problem. You thought you were in charge. Thought your money and your power made you untouchable." His grip tightened on Zoe's shoulder, making the girl whimper. "But I was in charge the whole time. Watching. Waiting. Guiding you exactly where I needed you to be." "And look where that got you. Hayes is in custody. Phoenix is destroyed. Everyone who worked with you is either dead or facing life in prison." "Everyone except me." Daniel's smile widened. "I've always been good at surviving, Victoria. At adapting. At finding new opportunities in chaos." "There's no opportunity here. Only ending." "On that, we agree." Daniel raised his weapon, pressing the barrel against Zoe's head. "Here's how this works. Victoria, you're going to come over here and kneel at my feet. Marcus, you're going to drop your weapon and watch. And then we're going to have a long conversation about loyalty and betrayal and what happens to people who cross me." Marcus's finger tightened on his trigger. He had a shot. Narrow, risky, but possible. If he could take Daniel out before the mercenaries reacted. "Don't even think about it." Daniel pressed the gun harder against Zoe's temple. "I know what you're capable of, soldier boy. I've read your file. 12 confirmed kills in Afghanistan. Classified operations on 3 continents. You're good. But you're not faster than a bullet." "Daddy?" Zoe's voice was small, terrified. "Daddy, I'm scared." "I know, baby. I know. Everything's going to be okay." "Is it?" Daniel laughed. "You really believe that? You think you can save her the way you couldn't save that other little girl? What was her name? Amira?" Marcus flinched as if he'd been struck. "Oh yes, I know all about her. Hayes told me the whole story. How you refused to follow orders. How your sentimentality got your entire team killed. How that little girl died anyway, screaming and alone, because you were too weak to do what needed to be done." "Stop. Does your daughter know? Does she know that her daddy is a failure? That everyone he tries to protect ends up dead?" I said stop. Maybe after tonight she'll understand. Maybe her last thought will be that her father couldn't save her either, just like all the others. Something inside Marcus snapped, but it wasn't the blind rage Daniel expected. It wasn't the loss of control that would make him do something stupid. It was clarity. Perfect. Cold. Absolute. He'd spent 5 years running from who he was, hiding from the skills that made him dangerous, telling himself that violence was behind him, that he could be just a father, just a mechanic, just a normal man. But normal men couldn't save his daughter. Normal men couldn't stop men like Daniel Webb. Only monsters could fight monsters, and Marcus Jackson had been a monster once. The kind that haunted enemy nightmares. The kind that moved through darkness like it was home. It was time to remember. "Victoria," Marcus said quietly. "When I move, get Zoe, and don't look back."
Marcus,
"Trust me." The silence stretched between them. Then Victoria nodded almost imperceptibly. Marcus dropped his weapon. "Smart choice," Daniel said. "Now, Victoria, come." Marcus moved. Not toward Daniel. Toward the mercenary on his left. The one who'd shifted slightly out of position when Marcus dropped his weapon. The one whose trigger finger had relaxed just a fraction. 3 steps. 2 strikes. A broken nose, a shattered knee. A weapon torn from nerveless fingers and turned on its former owner. The first mercenary dropped. The second was already firing, but Marcus was no longer where he'd been standing. He rolled beneath the muzzle flash, came up inside the man's guard, drove an elbow into his solar plexus, and used his body as a shield against the third shooter. Bullets tore through flesh that wasn't his. The third mercenary hesitated, just a heartbeat, and that was enough. Marcus's borrowed weapon spoke twice. Center mass. The man collapsed. 4 seconds. 3 down. Daniel was screaming orders, but his remaining men were panicking. They'd expected to face a desperate father, not a killing machine. Victoria was moving too. The lessons her father had taught her, the instincts she'd discovered in the past 3 days. She grabbed a fallen weapon and put 2 rounds into a mercenary who was trying to flank Marcus. 5 down. The 6th man broke and ran. He didn't get far. Katerina's voice crackled in their earpieces. "Hostile neutralized. You're clear." Daniel stood alone now, his pistol still pressed against Zoe's head, his composure finally cracking. "Stop! Stop or I'll kill her!" Marcus stopped. He was 6 feet away, close enough to see the sweat beading on Daniel's forehead, close enough to see the fear in his eyes. "You're not going to kill her," Marcus said quietly. "Try me." "You're not going to kill her because she's your only leverage. The moment you pull that trigger, you're a dead man. You know it. I know it. Then we're at a stalemate." "No, we're not." Marcus took a step forward. "Because I'm going to give you something you want more than leverage. More than survival." "What could you possibly—" "Me." Another step. "You want to hurt me, Daniel. That's what this is really about. You couldn't beat Victoria, couldn't beat Hayes, couldn't build your empire, and now you want someone to suffer for your failures. Stay back, let her go, and I'll give you what you want. No weapons, no tricks, just you and me." Marcus spread his arms wide. "One shot at the man who ruined everything. Isn't that worth more than killing a child?" Daniel's eyes flickered. The calculation behind them was almost visible, weighing his options, measuring his chances. "Daddy, no!" Zoe cried. "It's okay, baby. Everything's going to be okay." "You'd really die for her?" Daniel asked. "I'd do anything for her." Something shifted in Daniel's expression. Not mercy. Men like him didn't know mercy. But greed. The hunger to inflict pain on someone who mattered. "Fine." He shoved Zoe forward. "Take her." Victoria lunged, catching the girl before she hit the ground, pulling her away from the confrontation. Marcus and Daniel faced each other across the dusty floor. "You know I'm going to kill you," Daniel said, raising his weapon. "You can try." Daniel fired. Marcus was already moving, not away from the bullet, into it. The round grazed his shoulder as he closed the distance, his hand catching Daniel's wrist, twisting, breaking. The pistol clattered away. Daniel screamed, but Marcus wasn't finished. 5 years of grief and rage and guilt came flooding out in a symphony of violence. Every technique he'd learned in a decade of special operations. Every dark skill he'd tried to forget. Bones broke. Blood flowed. Daniel Webb collapsed to the ground, broken but alive. Marcus stood over him, breathing hard, his fists bloody. "Kill me," Daniel gasped. "Just do it." Marcus wanted to. God, how he wanted to.
This man had used Victoria, had threatened Zoe, had been part of a conspiracy that murdered children and soldiers and innocent civilians. He deserved to die. But Marcus looked at his daughter, clutched in Victoria's arms, watching him with wide, frightened eyes, watching to see what kind of man her father really was. "No," Marcus said quietly. "You don't get the easy way out." He stepped back as federal agents flooded the building. Katerina had called them the moment the shooting started. They swarmed around Daniel, securing him, reading his rights, carrying him away to face justice. Marcus didn't watch him go. He was already crossing to Victoria and Zoe, falling to his knees, pulling his daughter into his arms. "Daddy!" Zoe sobbed, clinging to him with all her strength. "I was so scared. The bad man said you weren't coming."
He said, "I will always come for you," Marcus said fiercely. "Always, no matter what. Do you understand?"
"I understand."
"I love you more than anything in this world, more than my own life."
"I love you too, Daddy."
They held each other for a long time, father and daughter, while the chaos of the aftermath swirled around them. And when Marcus finally looked up, Victoria was standing a few feet away, tears streaming down her face. "Come here," he said. She didn't hesitate. She crossed the distance and joined them, wrapping her arms around both of them, letting her tears fall freely.
"Is it over?"
Zoe asked, her voice muffled against Marcus's chest. "It's over, baby. It's finally over." 6 months later, the sign outside the new garage read, "Jackson and Sterling Security Consulting." The building was larger than Marcus's old shop, better equipped, more professional. But it still smelled like motor oil and hard work, and that was exactly how he wanted it. Katerina had helped them set up the business. Her contacts in the intelligence community provided a steady stream of clients, corporations, and individuals who needed protection from threats they couldn't handle alone. Marcus handled the operational side. Victoria managed the strategy and client relations. They made a good team, but the business was only part of their new life. The more important part was happening right now, in the kitchen of the farmhouse they bought on the outskirts of Millbrook.
"Zoe, stop eating the frosting."
"But it's so good." "It won't be good if there's none left for the cake." Marcus leaned against the doorframe, watching Victoria and Zoe attempt to bake a birthday cake. Flour covered most of the counter, and somehow Zoe had gotten chocolate on her forehead. But both of them were laughing. It was the most beautiful sound he'd ever heard. "You're supposed to be helping," Victoria called out, catching his eye. "I am helping. I'm supervising." "Supervisors don't get cake." "Then I'll be a consultant. Consultants always get cake." Zoe giggled. "Daddy's silly." "Daddy is very silly," Victoria agreed. "But we love him anyway." Marcus felt his heart swell. 6 months ago, he'd been a broken man hiding from his past. Now he had a home, a family, a purpose. And he had Victoria. After the dust settled from the Omni Shoreham, after Daniel was sentenced to life in prison, after Hayes's entire network was dismantled and exposed, they'd taken things slow. Victoria had sold Sterling Defense, donating most of the proceeds to veteran support organizations. She'd moved into the farmhouse temporarily, which had become permanent within weeks. They hadn't talked about the future, hadn't made grand declarations or plans. They'd simply existed together, day by day, building something neither of them had expected to find. But tonight was different. Tonight, Marcus had something to say. The birthday cake, Zoe's 7th, was eventually completed, despite the frosting casualties. Candles were lit, songs were sung, wishes were made. "What did you wish for?" Victoria asked, as Zoe blew out the candles. "I can't tell you. Then it won't come true." "That's very wise." After cake and presents and stories, Marcus carried a sleepy Zoe up to her bedroom. He tucked her in, kissed her forehead, and started to leave.
Daddy,
Yes, baby?
do you love Miss Victoria?
Marcus paused at the door. Why do you ask?
Because she makes you smile, like Mommy used to.
The simple observation hit him harder than any bullet ever had. He returned to Zoe's bedside, kneeling so he could look into her eyes. Yes, he said softly. I love her.
Are you going to marry her?
Would that be okay with you? Zoe considered this with the gravity only a 7-year-old could muster.
Would she be my new mommy?
She would be whatever you want her to be, whatever feels right.
Mommy's still my mommy, in heaven.
Always. Nothing will ever change that.
But maybe I could have 2 mommies? One in heaven and one here?
Marcus felt tears prick his eyes. I think Mommy would like that very much. Zoe smiled.
Then yes, you should marry her.
Just like that?
Just like that.
Marcus laughed, pulling his daughter into one final hug. When did you get so smart?
I've always been smart. You just weren't paying attention.
Later that night, Marcus found Victoria on the porch, wrapped in a blanket, watching the stars. He settled beside her, close enough that their shoulders touched.
Zoe asleep?
She asked. Finally. 7-year-olds have more energy than any special forces unit I ever served with. Victoria laughed.
She's amazing.
She is. Marcus paused. She asked me something tonight. Something important.
What?
If I loved you. Victoria went very still.
What did you tell her?
The truth. Silence stretched between them, filled with the chirping of crickets and the distant hoot of an owl. Marcus reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. I had this whole speech planned, he said. Something about how you crashed into my life and changed everything. About how I was dead inside until you reminded me what it felt like to be alive. About how I never expected to love anyone again after Rebecca. But here I am, loving you so much it scares me.
Marcus.
But Zoe said something that made all those words seem unnecessary. She said, you make me smile, like her mommy used to. He opened the box, revealing a simple diamond ring that caught the starlight. I don't have pretty words, Victoria. I just have the truth. I love you. Zoe loves you. And we want you to be part of our family. For real. Forever. Victoria stared at the ring, then at Marcus, then back at the ring. Tears were streaming down her face. I never thought I'd have this, she whispered.
A family. A home. Someone who loves me for who I am, not what I can do for them.
Is that a yes?
I never thought I'd find someone like you. Someone who fights for what's right, even when it costs him everything. Someone who loves his daughter with such fierce devotion. Someone who saw the real me, the scared, damaged, broken me, and decided I was worth saving.
Victoria, is that a yes? She laughed through her tears, launching herself into his arms so hard they both nearly tumbled off the porch.
Yes, she breathed against his lips. Yes, 1,000 times yes.
Marcus kissed her then, under the stars, on the porch of the home they'd built together. And when they finally broke apart, he saw something in her eyes he'd never expected to see again. Joy. Pure, uncomplicated joy.
There's one more thing, Victoria said.
What?
Zoe's wish, when she blew out the candles.
She told you?
She whispered it to me while you were getting more ice cream.
Victoria smiled.
She wished for a baby brother.
Marcus felt his heart skip. A baby? Too soon? No, not too soon. He pulled her close again. Not too soon at all. The next morning, Zoe came downstairs to find Marcus and Victoria making breakfast together. They were laughing about something, standing closer than normal, and there was a new ring on Victoria's finger. "Did it happen?" Zoe demanded. "Did you ask her?" "Ask her what?" Marcus tried to look innocent. "Daddy!" "Yes," Victoria answered, kneeling to Zoe's level. "He asked, and I said yes." Zoe's face split into the biggest smile Marcus had ever seen. She threw her arms around Victoria's neck, squeezing with all her might. "I knew it! I wished for it and it came true!" "You wished for this?" "I wished for you to be my mommy. For real." Victoria's tears returned, but they were happy tears now, the best kind. "Then I guess wishes do come true," she said. That afternoon, they drove to the cemetery where Rebecca was buried. It was something Marcus needed to do, something he'd been putting off for months, afraid of what it might mean, what it might feel like. Victoria and Zoe waited by the car while he approached his wife's grave. "Hey, baby," he said softly, kneeling in the grass. "It's been a while. I'm sorry about that. Things got complicated." The wind rustled through the trees. Marcus imagined it was Rebecca answering. "I met someone I never expected. Someone who makes me smile again." He paused. "Zoe says she makes me smile like you used to. And she's right. Victoria doesn't replace you. No one ever could. But she's helped me remember how to live, how to hope, how to love." He placed his hand on the headstone, feeling the cool marble beneath his fingers. "I'm going to marry her. We're going to be a family, her and me and Zoe. And I hope wherever you are, you're okay with that. I hope you know that I'll never stop loving you, that you'll always be part of our family, even if you're not here to see it." The wind picked up, carrying the scent of flowers from somewhere nearby. "I think you'd like her. She's strong and stubborn, and she doesn't take any crap from anyone. Kind of like you." Marcus smiled through his tears. "I think you'd be friends." He stood, brushing grass from his knees. "Thank you, Rebecca, for loving me, for giving me Zoe, for making me promise to keep living." He touched the headstone one final time. "I'm keeping that promise every single day." When he returned to the car, Victoria took his hand without saying anything. She didn't need to. She understood. They drove home together, Marcus, Victoria, and Zoe. A family forged in violence and loss, but built on love and hope and the stubborn belief that second chances were possible. The road stretched ahead of them, leading toward a future none of them could predict. But for the first time in years, Marcus wasn't afraid of what that future might hold. He had his daughter. He had his partner. He had a purpose. And he had something he thought was lost forever. Home. In the small town of Millbrook, where it had all started with a car crash and a plea for help, Marcus Jackson had finally found what he'd been searching for since the day his team died in Afghanistan. Not redemption. He'd stopped looking for that long ago. Something better. Something real. A reason to keep fighting. A reason to keep living. A reason to believe that even broken people could find their way back to the light. As the farmhouse came into view, Zoe bounced excitedly in her seat. "Can we have pizza for dinner? To celebrate?" "Celebrate what?" Victoria asked. "Our family. Being together. Being happy." Marcus met Victoria's eyes in the rearview mirror and saw his own joy reflected there. "Yeah, baby," he said. "I think that's worth celebrating." They pulled into the driveway as the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson. Zoe ran ahead, her laughter echoing across the yard. Victoria followed, catching her and spinning her around until they were both dizzy and giggling. Marcus watched them, his daughter and the woman he loved, and felt something settle into place inside his chest. A peace he hadn't known since before the war. A completeness he'd stopped believing was possible. He walked toward them, toward his family, toward the life he'd almost lost and fought so hard to save. And for the first time in longer than he could remember, Marcus Jackson smiled, without any shadows behind it. The past would always be with him. The faces of fallen brothers, the memory of a little girl he couldn't save, the scars that marked his body and his soul. But the future belonged to him now, to them, to the family they were building together. And that future was bright enough to chase away even the darkest ghosts. The mechanic had found his second chance. The CEO had found her true strength. And together, they had found something worth more than all the power and money in the world. A love that couldn't be broken, a family that couldn't be destroyed, and a home that would stand against any storm. Some stories end in tragedy. Some end in triumph. But the best stories, the ones that stay with you long after the last page is turned, end with hope. This was one of those stories.